So, lastly, I want to talk about Rufai Oseni, the Arise News anchor. You know, is someone that prior to 2023 elections, I stumbled across Arise. I was watching more of channels television, channels sometimes AIT. Then what's it called now? Is President Tinubu's station. You know, So, and I follow them online and stuff like that, newspapers. So I now stumbled across Arise Television. I saw that they were doing these morning shows, and I really liked. Anytime I'm not going to work, I'm not in a hurry, I watch the morning shows. I came across Rufai Oseni. He's an activist, anchor, likes holding guests to account, holding government officials, heads of industries and all that. He asks critical questions. I remember one thing he did, before that 2020 elections, before Oseni kept insisting with the IREV work, with the server work, with the INEC server work, kept asking, will it work? And it didn't work on the presidential election. So anytime I remember that, I remember what Rufai Oseni used to ask. So it's someone who holds people to account and is popular. A lot of his videos gone viral, and he's really done a lot of effective questioning. When he questions a lot of things, like when he questioned the entire Yedili of the head of the chairman of fiscal and tax committee, who is now current minister of state for finance. He does a lot of good questioning, and yeah, he really held people to account. That's why some government officials don't like going to Arise when they know that he will be in there. But over time, I've noticed something. You know, everything has limits. Everything has limits. Sometimes if you overdo certain things, then you know that you've crossed. You know, so there are a number of instances I know that he crossed the line. For example, you are a TV host, raising your voice on a guest, trying to shut down a guest, trying to like put a guest in his or her place, refusing to allow a guest to answer. That is something that should not be expected of a TV host, of a journalist. You know, I've seen instances like when he was interviewing Danny Bola, one of the spokesperson for President Tinubu, where he tries to, you know, assert his points and not allow the person to respond the way the person wants to respond. You know, I've seen a guest, there's this Emmanuel that comments on oil and gas, Dangote, and is an economist. Emmanuel is his name. You know, and when he got there, and Rufai was just trying to make the point, you are a spokesperson for Dangote, you speak for Dangote, you know. This someone that is an economist, somebody who has very good knowledge of economics, good knowledge of the oil sector, you know. And then most times, Emmanuel speaks most times in favor of the Dangote industry, but I don't think he's an official spokesperson or something like that, but most times he says things in favor of it. And then he kept just when the issue of Dangote and Farouk, the former head of the regulatory agency, when the issue was out, you know, and he kept asking some questions. Rufai was asking questions about the evidence that Dangote has as to whether Farouk actually committed an offense, maybe some other person paid the salary of those children, and Emmanuel was trying to say some things, and he just Rufai was dismissive saying, "Oh, you speak for Dangote." And so, of course, you are going to say things in favor of Dangote and stuff like that, which I felt was inappropriate. Then there was this interview he went to meet Peter Obi. I conducted an interview, like 50 something minutes or so. It's a long interview. It's a residential place, one on one with Peter Obi. You know, and I watched it, and it's Rufai didn't allow Peter Obi to land. He asked questions, Peter Obi is trying to answer, he bring in something. He was asking too many questions, saying too many things without allowing the guests, without allowing Obi to talk. And we've seen that whereby a guest, you are asking a guest question, you spend a long time asking a question. The person is trying to answer the question, and you keep interjecting, you keep trying to question the credibility of the person that's answering the question. You're not allowing the person to learn and all of that. So there are things that have been excesses, even in spite of the many good things he's done, raising an awareness, a lot of things, speaking for people who are disenfranchised, like during the war in Sudan, trying to get Nigerians out and all of that. But the key thing that brings me to this subject is what he did recently, where he was in the somebody came in to arise. Is Sam Meme, national chairman of the Democratic Leadership uh, Alliance. Is a new one of the new parties that was approved by INEC, hmm, Democratic Leadership Alliance (DLA). So the chairman Sam Meme came on the Arise Morning Show, and Ruben Abati, Dr. Ruben Abati asked questions. Ayo Mero Essay asked questions. Then he got to the turn of Rufai Oseni to ask questions. And Rufai Oseni was asking, "What will you do about the exchange rate?" And he was laughing. He was laughing uncontrollably.
Must do what exactly what the party represent and not what their wish is.
Okay, Meme, I'd like to know your party's ideology on management of exchange rates. What methods?
Okay, on the issue of
And female genital mutilation. Female genital mutilation. Methods and ways in which your party is going to be able to handle these issues. Exchange rates. What method? Floating, managed, running float. What kind of method? Female genital mutilation.
no, of course, there is so many factors that can, affect the issue of exchange rate. And when you look at the policy direction of this government, you will understand that there is no how we would have a favorable exchange rate. But when we get our policy on the issue of exchange rate has to do with science-based economy, production rather than consumption. When we begin to have more industries in this country, when the government begin to invest more on production rather than consumption, and all of these things will transform into what we can have as the benefit of as a country. So it has to do with the direction of the policies of governance as a political party. Where we get into government and we would look more into the critical aspect of this country, and we must also protect the country. We must also work on the issue of security. When we begin,
And then he interjected, he mentioned something like female genital mutilation. I didn't know where that came from, because I tried to watch a fuller version, and I didn't hear any mention of female genital mutilation in the discussion. The discussion was on this new party, DLA, one of the opposition parties, and Ruben Abati asked about opposition parties, how are they doing? Mario Essay asked a question. Then Rufai, aside from the laugh, which is quite odd and weird, subsequently, the interview had to be ended because after the guest replied, and it was really awkward, right? One key thing, mentioning female genital mutilation. What's your principle about female genital mutilation? I don't know how that fits into whatever they were discussing. This was really odd for him to mention that female genital mutilation. I don't know if maybe it's not part of the video I watched or something. That female genital mutilation question was odd. Just something that just came out of nowhere. And then the laugh, uncontrollable laughter. Yes, he is the Sam Meme is in a new political party. The political party is a little political party. It's not a big party, you know. But Sam Meme, I cannot say he's a lawyer. He's the chairman of a political party. There are so many parties that apply to be registered that were not approved. But this DLA was, and he's the chairman. And you invited him to your show. For you to have invited him to the flagship morning show on Arise shows you value the person, you value what the person has to say. And then the person is there answering questions, and then you start asking questions and you're laughing. The law suggests you don't have any regard or respect for the guests, and you forget you're on live TV. It's not like you are doing an informal, you are doing a interview in other setting where it can be edited or something. It's live TV. Laughing. It was really odd. It was really odd. And I have not seen any statement from Rufai Oseni apologizing for that. I've not seen any statement from Arise News apologizing for that. Arise News need to apologize for that. Rufai Oseni need to apologize for that. For that moment of lack of professionalism, for that moment of that moment was so wrong, so odd to watch. If you watch it, you cringe because it really, 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 really it was really bad. It was really bad. The guest, the guest was composed. Not many guests would have taken that. If it were other guests that Rufai was laughing at like that, they would have responded in kind. They would have questioned why he was laughing. But this Sam Meme maintained his posture, composure, answered the questions to the best of his ability. No, because of course it's a new party. And there are a lot of things that have not really been sorted out in the new political party. They are still trying to find their way in the field of so many opposition parties. So you weren't really expecting much. I thought the questions should have been, you're trying to ask some general questions. But the key thing is that it's a new party. Tell us about your party. Tell us about what's the vision of your party, the other things about the party. Tell us more and all that. There are things that they could have asked. Then it was really sad to watch, and it fits into that narrative of that line between trying to act as a professional journalist and crossing the line. The line was crossed. But I've noticed one thing with some of these news stations. You know, sometimes they don't apologize for certain things, and that shouldn't be it. Like the morning show, sometimes they start late. I don't know if they've improved now. They start late and they just start without apologizing. Sometimes some of the hosts, anchors will be absent and they won't explain why the anchors are absent. If you look at other shows that you watch, US and other things, if we are three-member panel or something, if one is absent, they could explain, oh, this person is out on break or something like that. But this one, they don't explain. They don't apologize for starting late. And then you now conduct an interview and you behave in a way that is irresponsible, to for lack of a better word, and then no apology. This was not addressed. The issue was not addressed. I checked to see if there was an apology. I browsed with the search thing. Was there an apology from Arise or from Rufai? And I didn't see it. Everything has limits. Even if you're an activist, there's a limit. You know, the people cross certain lines. When Fisayo posted about the doctor in the Nigerian doctor in the UK, when Fisayo's journalist, one of the journalists in Fish, you know, posted about, and people said the issue has been investigated in UK and all that. People told him he crossed the line. Even though he didn't apologize, but he crossed the line. When you cross the line, you apologize. When you made a mistake, something happens, you apologize for it. If you now soldier on, if you want to show that no, you are above anything, then you just lose it. You lose the respect that people have for you because you are human. As human, we make mistakes. As human, sometimes we may have one illness or something, and sometimes we may act in a way that is not proper. And when it now happens and is brought to attention, you apologize for that. That's one thing to note. For Arise News, I think the main, I don't want to compare channels, but I think channels